Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and yes, yet another Jurassic World review. This time we've got a Chaos Theory figure as we have the gigantic Tracker's Mapusaurus. This is one that I was particularly excited about because of course it's the first time we've had a Mapusaurus in the Mattel line, but also because the figure looks really cool and does have that almost fully painted sort of look and feel, especially with the paint running all the way out there onto the tail. Although kind of think that maybe the area that's painted is actually a separate piece that's applied to the figure, and maybe that's, I guess, why it looks like it's fully painted, because maybe it was made in that color. I'm not too sure, but it does have, again, paint, or color, I should say, running all the way out onto the tail, which is definitely a good thing. The head looks huge on it, though. It definitely looks a bit on the larger side than it should be, but it still looks like a pretty cool figure, and definitely another fun one for the Mattel line. And then here on the back, you can see, again, we've got some images of the figure, and also, of course, not only is this a Chaos Theory, it is an Epic Evolution figure, which you can see it does evolve for battle. And then we have the Mapusaurus down here, which I will have a review up of as well very, very soon. So let's go ahead and pop this box open and check it out. So here is our Mapusaurus, and we need to readjust the camera here just a little bit so we can get this in a better spot. But there we go, we can now see the opposing side, the side we didn't see previously. I do like it, I think it looks pretty fun. The proportions are definitely off. The tail's short, the legs just seem off to me, and the head is huge, but it still looks like a pretty fun figure to me. I'm not a big fan of the positioning of the arms either. Like, the hands are kind of awkward looking as far as the way they're posed, but the arms are actually a very, very soft and flexible material, which clearly is something Mattel is going to be doing moving forward. I think the Danger Packs I recently had reviewed also had very flexible arms. But overall, again, I think it looks pretty fun, so let's jump straight to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Mapusaurus, you can see it does have some very nice looking scale detail, very reptilian, I would say, scale detail that you can see through the majority of the face here of the Mapusaurus. We've got the nostrils sculpted out right here. You can see the eyes are painted with an orange, have a nice black pupil, or maybe it's just the dark blue that we have for the head. It kind of looks more like a black, actually, so I definitely think it's a black pupil. You can see we've got like a light brown for the lower jaw. There's also a little variation to the scales down here as we have some nice, more standard scale detail, but then you've also got a few clusters of larger osteoderm-like scales back there. You do have an articulated jaw, of course. It's part of the action feature just so it doesn't stay open, but you can see the teeth look really nice. Again, these are those newer teeth Mattel has been using lately where they have a softer feel to them. You can see they're flexible, but they have a genuine sharp look to them, which is a massive improvement over any of the older teeth on Mattel figures. You can see the same for the lower jaw. They're painted with kind of like an off-white. You also, if I can keep a hold of the jaw here, have a really nicely textured tongue in there. Look at how nice that tongue looks. Again, as far as the texturing goes, that would be fun to paint, honestly. You can see there's a nice pinkish tone, a nice gloss coat, and then you've got some decent detail on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, but nothing really too crazy up there. You can see the skin stretching here on the inside of the mouth as well. And then if you turn the dinosaur around, take a look at the opposing side of the head, everything looks pretty much the same over here as it did on the initial side. I do like the fact that it's not an absolute clone on each side, though. Like, you can see that this cluster of scales differs a little bit compared to the way that they look over here, so that is pretty cool. But as you move up here into the top of the head, you can see a very bumpy look to the top of the head of our Mapusaurus. You can also see that the head has almost a little bit of a satin shine to it overall, like it does have a bit of a shine, especially up here on the top of the head. But you can see that we've got like some ridges and stuff that kind of follows along the top of the head. Lots of bumpy, osteoderms and scales and ridges moving all over the place up here on the top of the head of the dinosaur. As you move down, you can see them as well kind of following along the back of the neck of the dinosaur. So definitely a unique appearance for this one. Definitely a bit different compared to any dinosaurs we've seen previously. And I must commend Mattel for continuing to create their dinosaurs and giving them, of course, your standard sort of stylized look, but also continuing to give us a different look for each and every dinosaur, not making their figures always look the same. Like, they really do stand out, and you can very easily tell the different figures from each other. and the different species. But as you move down the course of the neck, again, the scale detail continues to look really nice. We have that brown tone following along the underside here. And what's really nice is as you move down, that brown tone does not cease. It continues to move through the course of the underside of the figure, not just here, but the entire way through the figure. Now, how crazy cool is that? That's not something you often see from Mattel. So again, kudos to Mattel for that. You can also see there is a speckling present. If my camera would focus, there we go. You can see a speckling present on the arm of this one as you move through down into the hands. No nail paint for the hands, unfortunately, but the hands are sculpted nicely. You've got some nice scoots moving down the fingers. Very vibrant scale detail pretty much everywhere throughout. You can also see we do have an articulated neck, but that again is part of the action feature. You do also have articulated arms, forward and back and out away from the body. And as I said, they're very flexible, very soft. It's interesting. You'll definitely see that when you do find this figure, you do happen to grab one, you'll really notice how different the arms are when it comes to the material used. But as you move up here to the top of the dinosaur, you can see, again, we have almost that sort of armored look continuing, but you also have some random kind of like almost like pink ridges that kind of poke out of the back of the dinosaur, and I think they're probably going to extend. I'm pretty sure that's what the evolving feature was there. I like that they do have these knobs, but they're almost kind of hidden amongst the sort of armored look on the back of the dinosaur. So even though they are kind of obvious, they're also sort of hidden, so I guess not too bad of a job as far as that goes. But I like that you see the dark blue running along the top and patterning down into the brown underside. The paintwork of this is probably one of the better looking paint jobs that I've seen on any Mattel figure in the main line in quite some time. As you move back, not only do they continue to give you the two tones through most of the body, you can see it also runs down into the legs as you have that darker blue moving down the front of the leg and then this lighter brown, slightly different shade of lighter brown, but running down along the back of the thigh down into the calf and then disappearing as you lead down into the feet. You can see again the very nice scale detail, maybe a little bit more rough and rugged here, almost V-Rex like I would say as far as the way that the skin texture looks in the leg and actually a large portion of the body as a whole. But you can also see these super huge bumpy scales moving down the thigh as well. As you move down, you've got scoots moving down the knee, down toward the shin, through the shin, and then down into the toes as well. You can also see the calf muscle back here. Again, we have that same style of scale detail moving all the way down. And then wouldn't you know it, we actually have nail paint here with a nice glossy black. You also have of course, the Duclaws sculpted out, but no nail paint added, unfortunately, to that area. But you do have articulation in the legs, again, forward and back, pretty much your standard. Also out away from the body, but it's not quite as movable as it used to be. And then you do have these swivel ankles like you usually have. And then you move out here into the tail, and shockingly, you'll notice there is no seam here for the tail, for the articulated area of the tail, which is weird, but there is a seam. It's just a little further out. But as you move out, you can see the blue, again, continue to run along the top of the tail, the brown continuing to run along the lower part of the tail. Mattel has really been enjoying these bumpy scales through a lot of their figures lately. You've seen that on tons of figures like the Ecrixanatosaurus and the Rajasaurus, as well as quite a few others. But you can see it looks like this dark blue is kind of like a separate piece that's added to the dinosaur. Maybe that's why we have the color the entire way out through the tail. But the seam ends up right here, which is super weird, and it's only a swivel. But you can see the underside has a much finer type of scale detail moving down. You can also see a nice curve to the tail as you lead out. Again, a curve right here at the end. And then we've got the fax app code here. And there you go. If you'd like to add that one to your collection, there is the fax app code for the figure. And then once you turn it around, you're going to see all pretty much the same type of stuff that we just saw on the initial side, except for the fact that the leg is leading on this side, whereas it is trailing on the opposing side. But that's really about it when it comes to the sculpt and paint. Definitely a pretty decent looking figure. So as far as the action feature goes, we've got this little rolling button right here. There's a button on each side, but I think they both do the same thing. So we'll go ahead and do that. So basically it creates a chomping action feature. We'll try this one. Yeah, it seems to do the same thing on both sides. I don't know why we have two buttons. It doesn't really make much sense. Maybe we're supposed to do it with both. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really do anything different. There is a button on the underside, though, that's going to pop out those spines on the back of the Mapusaurus, and as you can see, they're nicely detailed, but I'm not a big fan of this. Like, continuously, whenever Mattel does this, I never really enjoy it. I think it does give the dinosaur a very unique look, that's for sure, but it's definitely not something that's realistic by any means. But as far as a size goes for the Mapusaurus, lengthwise, actually, let's do it from the other side because the tail's leaning toward us over here. So lengthwise, about just shy of 14 inches, maybe closer to 13 3/4, but not too far away from 14 inches, or about 35.5 centimeters. And then for a height, let's get the head back up. There we go. You are looking at about 6 1/4 inches, or around 16 centimeters for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon in the Collect Day human being next to our Mattel Gigantic Trackers Mapusaurus, and you can see it's pretty much in the size range you would expect for this type of figure. It's definitely larger than your standard kind of Rorovore size range, but it's also not gigantic or anything like that. Even though it is the Gigantic Trackers, I guess that name is a little misleading, but it's still a nicely sized figure, that's for sure. Here you can see how the figure sizes up to your standard Rorovore or Roar Attack type size range. Again, the Concavenator is definitely a bit smaller than our Mapusaurus. But then when it comes to your standard Gigantic Trackers figure, we've got the Yankshuanosaurus, which you can see is very much so the same similar size as our Mapusaurus. And one final comparison will give us the Bistahieversur from Mattel next to the Mapusaurus, which you can see the Bistahieversur is actually a little bit smaller than the Mapusaurus is. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory Epic Evolution Gigantic Trackers Mapusaurus is pretty fun. It's not a great figure, but it's definitely a nicely painted figure. Like, sculpt-wise, it's really well done. It does have a whole lot of detail. I don't know that I'd say it's the most accurate Mapusaurus you're ever going to see, especially with growing spines on its back, but it is nicely sculpted. It's very highly detailed throughout, and it is definitely unique. It certainly looks a bit different from your average Mattel dinosaur, but at the same time kind of similar, if that makes any sense. And they've done a very good job of sculpting out very nice detail throughout, whether it be the finer scale detail or the rough and rugged, almost armored type of ridges and scale detail moving along the back. It does look really nice. The proportions are certainly off, and that's something that's pretty darn common when it comes to Mattel figures. I don't ever see them getting the proportions right unless it's in like a Hammond Collection release. At least they're pretty close there. When it comes to the dinosaurs they are portraying on screen, at least. But the head is definitely a bit large, the tail's a bit short, the legs seem a little bit off to me as far as the size goes, but it's not the end of the world. You don't ever usually find perfectly proportioned figures in the Mattel main line. It does have some nice paintwork, though. I will say it's probably one of the nicest visually, like when it comes to the colors that we've seen from Mattel in a long time, because we do have color from head to tail, and we have painted nails on the feet at least, no Dewclaw paint, but it definitely helps the figure a lot when it comes to the coloration, and I think the fact that there is color from head to tail is a massive improvement over many other Mattel figures. On top of that, we do have a good bit of articulation as well as an action feature. The action feature is pretty much what you would expect for a dinosaur like this, nothing to really write home about. The evolving action feature is definitely a little goofy. Kids will definitely enjoy it at least. It's not really my cup of tea, but I can understand why they do it again, just to give it a little bit of fun, I guess. But overall, it's a very cool figure and worth picking up. Now, I did purchase this from Amazon. I don't think it's currently in stock, but I will include a link regardless, and then when it does come into stock, you can grab it from there. So make sure you do that, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.